District 2, Commissioner Hampton.
Present.
District 3, Commissioner Herbert.
Present.
District 4, Commissioner Forsyth.
Present.
District 5, Chair Shadid.
Present.
District 6, Commissioner Carpenter.
Present.
District 7, Commissioner Wheeler-Reagan. District 8, Commissioner Blair.
I'm here.
District 9, Commissioner Sleeper. District 10, Commissioner Housewright.
Present.
District 11, Commissioner Epler. District 12, Commissioner Hawk.
Present.
District 13, Commissioner Hall. District 14, Commissioner Kingston. And place 15, Vice Chair Rubin.
I'm here.
You have quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Today is Thursday, November 7th, 2024, 9:40 a.m. Welcome to the briefing of the Dallas City Planning Commission. Commissioners, as always, just a time to ask questions of staff, and we're going to jump right into the agenda. Good morning. We're going to begin with the City Planning Commission Annual Report Update. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Emily Liu, Director of Planning and Development. I was here in July to give you a very high-level overview of the new department that was only a couple weeks old at the time. So I'll come back with a little bit more information. I would like to share that with you. But most important today, our Deputy Director, Andrea, will share the data of the last fiscal year, actually the last 3 fiscal years, about the Planning Commission activity related to rezoning, all the cases that you're dealing with. And also she's going to lay out the plan for next year. And I have to say, the last few months, Andrea and her team have worked very hard trying to identify area for improvement. A lot of idea actually came from our staff, which know the process very well. Next slide, please. This is just overview. I'm going to give a department-wide overview, and then I turn it over to Andrea. Next slide, please. As you are aware, the department was newly formed back in June, actually June 26th. That's the first day for the new department. The department include 2 previous departments, Planning Urban Design and Development Services. Now we are one big family. The department has different functions headed by a deputy director, planning function, zoning, permitting, and customer and team excellence. So 4 different functions. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Last time I gave you a very high level, but this time I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about each of the team. So for planning, is doing a lot of long-range planning related. Forward Dallas, as you know, is a big part of that. They're doing community planning. They're also doing urban design, historic preservation, conservation district, and also GIS data and research. That part used to be housed under Development Service, now moved under planning. Andrea Gillis is deputy director for this one. Zoning, Andrea sitting next to me, the deputy director for that function. In the past, the zoning function was divided in half. Half of that is in planning, urban design. The other half is in development service. So there's a lot of disconnect. And sometimes we have one cases gone through the planning commission all the way and then going to get a permit, and then we have a different interpretation. They have to start over. So those are the things that we experience. There's a lot of complaint about that. But now we have 2 functions all under one. Zoning, as you know, zoning including text, map, and the process, all of that, and also interpretation, all of that is under this one big umbrella under Andrea. So the code amendment, interpretation council, that's one big area. The zoning map, rezoning is a map amendment going through a certain process. And also there's a specific regulation about how you go about the process from the beginning to the final step. In Andrea's team, the zoning team also help the planning commission, CPC, board adjustment, and also have other functions like subdivision, upper risk, and sign. So it's a big division. And also the next one, please. The permitting has been divided up into different smaller functions. Residential is one, residential permitting, commercial permitting, including engineer and Q team, and also have a separate team for inspections. These inspections including building inspection, electric, plumbing, all of those different inspections. We do have district office, so they are generally located in different area of the city. So the last function is really internal and external service. We have part of that serving internal, team excellence. These are related to budget, HR, IT, equipment. We also have external facing function, which including customer service, application intake, call center, concierge services, and also policy and communication. This is a very, very important division as well. They serve internal, external. For example, the call center. I just looked at the data the other day. Our call center receive almost 100,000 phone calls a year. That's a lot. We have all kinds of different questions. Some as simple as, hours, some more complex about zoning. So it's a very important function. So we have these 4 different divisions within the department. Next one, please. So during the last few months, we worked together with our managers and our staff and developed a mission for the department. Basically, we need to work together. So the mission statement says, together we are planning and building a better Dallas for all. So we want to make sure that we serve planning function, building function. We'll also serve everyone, every resident, every business in the city of Dallas. Currently, we have 430 positions with a budget of $67 million. Next one, please. I would like to talk a little bit about success. I'm trying to stay on the positive side. I'm going to share just big picture success. There's a lot of small improvements, small successes, but I'm going to focus on 3 things. So one of the biggest one, as I mentioned, reorganization and realignment of the functions and some positions as well. So we are trying to make improvement, break down the silos, and make sure we communicate throughout the department. We have weekly meetings with the staff. We have regular communication between different divisions. If something happens, say a zoning case here, it's going to have implication down the stream with permitting. We want to make sure we immediately communicate that information to our, different team members. And that has been a problem in the past by having, just because of structure, 2 different departments. There's a lot of mistake made because of that. But hopefully with reorganization and realignment, we're going to minimize the mistake we made. We're probably hard to say eliminate, but minimize the mistake, especially the mistake caused by miscommunication or lack of communication. We also look at a lot of different projections. So, for example, some of the projections that we had before for the old planning and urban design department, we had about 60-some projection total, but more than half of that, just one projection title, which is senior planner. We have a lot of senior planner here, but that projection seemed to be a lot of vacancy. So we started looking at that projection. It's very hard to attract someone like a senior projection level. You require like a degree, not only that, but also a minimum 5-year experience. By the time you have 5-year experience, you probably settled in a city somewhere. It's very difficult to move to Dallas, at that mid-level. So we look at that, we decided to make some changes. Some of the projection was reclassified a little bit higher, so give people opportunity to grow. In the past, planner have very little opportunity to grow upward. And also, we don't have a larger supply. Planner 1s and 2 is only 2 Planner 1s and 1 Planner 2s when I started here. So we're changing that. So we're downgrading some of the projections from senior planner to Planner 1 and 2s. And that's more likely to be like entry level. Somebody graduated from college, like my son, decided to go somewhere else. He ended up in Dallas, and I ended up following him. So they are at the stage very eager to move to a city. So we created some entry-level projects now being talking to a lot of colleges across the country, and a lot of young people want to move to Dallas. So this will give us opportunity to attract people that as an entry-level job. So we are changing the strategy in terms how we fill the position. And also, there's a very bright spotlight about commercial permitting improvement. So when I first started, one of the tasks is really looking at the commercial permitting. You see the picture there, and our interim city manager and Mark Cuban had a talk a couple months ago, and people asked him, what's the challenge here in Dallas? And he said, permitting. It's a challenge. The time that takes to get a commercial permitting is really, it's been like, since 2021, it's over 300 days. So that's how long it takes a commercial permitting. So that's something we work very hard. And I have to say, the team is laser focused. There's almost several dozen people work in the commercial, not just like commercial team per se, even rezoning team, zoning consultation, intake, engineering, and a lot of different actual function supporting this. So we're looking at every single function of that. As I mentioned, it takes an average about 300 days, but it's a good information about last month for the first time that permitting improvements, kind of a sample data, but the data is very consistent for the last few years. And that number has been reduced to 112 days for the first time. So that's a lot of work getting involved in that. We also close out a lot of stale permits. There's a permit just sitting there for some of them sitting there for years. So when that start to take action, that really impact your number too. So we have about 9,000 permits just sitting there for months, over 6 months, up to a few years. So staff look at that and starting to close those out. So as of this week, we close out close to 5,000 of them. So that's a lot of work. We also have some new process we're developing, new pre-development process. That means when people submit commercial permit, we make sure they get ready. So we're looking at helping them what you need to make sure all the application is in place. So we're working on that. And also, we have make some changes to the Q team requirement, basically make it lower threshold, and we have a surge in Q team application. So it's a big success there. And at the same time, we're still working on continuing improvement. Recently, we are working, October 1st, we started a new project working with Toyota Production System. There's a nonprofit helping organizations across the country to improve process improvement, reduce waste. So we were selected by Toyota Production System so we can work with them trying to further looking at the bottleneck here, the waste in the process, and trying to streamline the process. And that project should be complete at beginning of next year. It's very promising. Next one, please. I would like to say one of the biggest successes this past year is Forward Dallas. So thank you so much for your hard work. I know a lot of you spent hours and hours in looking at the draft, give us some comments, getting involved in the committee meetings, neighborhood meetings. These are just some of the data, how much work get into it. It's amazing. This is the 3 years of hard work. A lot of meetings, in person, virtual, a lot of interaction between staff and the community, a lot of feedback from you all, from policymakers, but finally it got adopted on September 25th. just less than 2 months ago. So those are the three big picture successes. I did not put on a slide. I have to say there are a lot of challenges. I did not have a slide about challenges, but I don't want to go without talking about it. The biggest challenge actually is change. We have made a lot of changes organizational wise, right? I have 430 employees, different divisions, different teams. Basically, we take them apart and put them together again. Change is difficult. Change is hard for a lot of people. For you and me, probably a lot of people, but change is necessary. Change is needed for the direction we're going. Not only that, we also have changing process. As I mentioned, we're looking at commercial permitting. We're looking at the rezoning process very soon. All those process changes is also very difficult. And also, we're also trying to change the culture of the department. And we want to focus on teamwork, collaboration, and problem solving. And that is also, you just can't do the same old again. And our interim city manager has a message: service first now. And I want to remind myself and my staff on a regular basis why we're here, why we hold our positions. We're here because of our customers. We're here to serve others. Service first now, to me, is service is what we do. Now means there's sense of urgency. So that's something I'm trying to talk to our staff on a regular basis. That's the reason we're here. So it's difficult, of course, and with that change, sometimes it could create a little bit, chaotic situation here and there, and could have some, turnover. And our turnover has been pretty steady over the last year for both departments. Actually, it's a little over 20%. And as of today, I have 98 vacancies. The biggest challenge is position is plumber. If you know a plumber is looking for a job, my phone is open 24/7. I need more plumbers, period. I need more planners too. All kinds of, but the reason I think we're still at 20%, that we are also looking at every position this moment. So I'm going to change that. October 1st, the first day, we're allowed to make some changes or reclassification. We're doing that. We just finished the permitting division, get all of those changes, some partition going up, some partition going down, but it's budget neutral, and we're looking at Andrea and Andrea's team to see what we can do there. One of the goals is to make sure we have a career path for our talented staff. We have a lot of staff, we want to keep them, we want to keep them not just for our department, but also in Dallas, but we also need to create a career path for them. These people, a lot of them have master's degree, been in the profession for many years. As I mentioned, a lot of them are senior planners, a very big bubble in the middle. There are only a few assistant directors, only one director, right? So we'll make sure we have a career path for people to grow into. And a lot of people are not only talented, are also doing above and beyond work. Make sure we take care of them. At the same time, we're trying to attract young people. So we are gradually working towards filling the positions. So I anticipate the vacancy rate will come down in the next few months. And also, the third challenge is talking about challenge of change, vacancy. The third challenging is really trust. We need to rebuild our trust with our customers, trust with our residents, even trust with our board and commissions. I had a presentation with Board Adjustment last week. It was not easy, but they gave me some very honest feedback, and I really take it seriously. And I think I do acknowledge some of the concerns that they have, and we are going to work hard trying to make changes, trying to rebuild the trust with everybody, even with policymakers. We need to build more trust. So those are the challenges. I don't have a slide, But I want you to be aware of that we do have challenge. This is not an easy job. This is not an easy department, but we're actually working on making improvement on all grounds. And also my last slide, we're talking about our department goals. These are the 7 goals that I talk to my staff all the time. These are our focus for the next few years, not just 1 year, it's multiple years. For example, the first one is Forward Dallas implementation. Now that it has been adopted, it's not going to sit on the shelf. We're going to implement it. There's a lot of recommendation in there. There's a lot of priority we work that we need to work. For example, environmental justice is one of the things we need to implement. We're also looking at corridors and center. That's what I heard, and a lot our staff heard, and you heard too. Lots of residents say we need density here, but we want them to focus on the corridors and centers. Fortunately, Dallas has light rail system. We should feel very, very privileged. A lot of cities do not even have the luxury to talk about light rail. Our light rail is one of the longest in the country, but we just need some return out of it. So by building density around transit, by building density around corridor will help not only the city continue to grow in the right way, but also will support our public transportation. So that's something we're going to work on. And also the development code reform, our zoning code, you know this better than me, are so outdated. That's probably one of the reasons we have so many planned development districts, over 1,100. If you're looking at the sub area, all the amendments, we're talking about thousands of them. I don't know how human capacity can manage all of that. And I'm not having excuses, and a lot of mistakes are made because they are in the PD, and sometimes it's very difficult to manage. So I think the reason we have so many PD, because the zoning code is outdated, does not work for all situations. People are trying to get around it. Guess what? When you create those PDs trying to get around the zoning, you actually create some issue down the road. We're looking at some PD created 20 years, 30 years down the road. We still have to deal with that. So the goal is to have a zoning reform so that in the future, we'll have hopefully no PUDs or very minimum. Some other cities have a few here and there, like 2 or 3. Those are very manageable. Name a city that has more PUD than Dallas. The only one I can think of is probably the city of Boston, but they are in the process of doing complete zoning overhaul. So this is a very important project, and this probably also not a simple project. That's probably going to have more discussion than Forward Dallas. So be prepared. If you're here for the next few years, you're going to hear a lot about this, and it's probably going to get a lot of feedback too. So that's important. Our zoning code, it was developed mostly in the 60s. Think about how old that is, 60 years old almost. We had some minor update in 1980, but it's very, very old. So we need to tackle that. Hopefully we will have a complete overhaul on that one as well. The third one is also important. Every 3 years, at the national level, ICC, International Code Council, will have new building code, international building code, mostly dealing with commercial, and also anything residential 3 units up is under the commercial code. And then international residential code is only dealing with single family and duplex. Every 3 years, the Code Council will release new code. They just released 2024 version. And the city, the good thing about City of Dallas, we do have a local ordinance allow the city to amend that. So we don't have to adopt exactly the same, which is good because every city is different, right? For other cities, that's all they do. Whatever put out by the International Building Council, that's what they have. But City of Dallas has ability to amend that to feed the need of the city. So that's something we're working on. It's a 2-year process. However, I just got a ordinance, a request from the city council, asked our department to look at the residential code, particularly whether we can expand that to include residential, basically, triplex, fourplex, or to eightplex. So 8 units or less, whether we can move that from commercial building code to residential code. So that's something we're working on in the next few months. We need to do that quickly. That's our phase 1. So once we do some research and best practice, I'll go back to the city council and provide them with some recommendation. Some other cities across the country are already looking at this. City of Memphis already get it done. Nashville, I just talked to them a couple of weeks ago. They are in the process of updating theirs as well. City of El Paso is working on there. Austin is working on there. East Coast, West, there are a lot of cities are looking at this to allow more residential, small-scale residential in the residential code per se. So stay tuned on that one. That one does not come over here, actually. That one go to a different board. They're going to review that, then we'll go to the city council. Number 4, implement the historic cultural preservation. This one was adopted city council back in April, and we are in the process of implement that. There are quite a few implementation programs that we're working on as we speak right now. So those are the 4 project-based. Each of this will have a owner, like Andrea will be leading the implementation for Dallas. Andrea will be the number 2. So each of this will have either a deputy director or assistant director take the lead on this. So the last 3, I have a different color. Those are department-wide. That's something we need to work every single day. So number 5 is streamline the development review process. That's something we heard that City of Dallas, permitting, we need to streamline, right? Not just permitting, we also heard that we also need to streamline the rezoning process, which including this board. As I mentioned, I already got a lot of idea from our staff. They are the one who work on this daily, and they already come together with a lot of idea. Andrea actually going to present some of those. We'll continue to get input from other people as well. And as a matter of fact, we held a listening session with our development community a couple months ago, and that's very helpful to get us focused on the things that we need to do. So I'm talking about that streamlining development report, and not just the big one, the commercial, the rezoning, but also smaller process. Like, for example, can we do a better job even more with the intake process? We're looking at every single process. No improvement is too small. And sometimes those smaller or small improvement idea after implemented will make a big change. So we're looking at every opportunity to streamline the process, no matter how big and how small they are. Number 6, use more innovation technology to enhance efficiency, accuracy, and transparency. This is very important. We have 3 big things we're working on right now. One of them is digitizing our files. Moving forward, we're trying to get everything submitted online or digital form. We are not completely in that direction. We are moving in that direction, so we need to do a little bit more. And going backwards, we need to scan some historic files so we can upload online so people can look, when you have a case, you want to see what happened to the other case, or you can look online. So that's something we're doing. And we have a little budget, so we're working on that, laser focus on that. The second one, which is very important, is we're going to have a new permitting program called Acela. This is a program in my previous city we've been using it for years. This one is very important. It will allow people not only submit their plans online, but also make it very open, transparent. Basically, say Commissioner Blair submit something, just example, and the whole world will know what is submitted. This is very open, transparent. You can do a search by address, by location, or just by application type. Recently, I want to see what has been submitted to this Department of Planning and Development this month, or this week, or today. You look up there, look at rezoning, it shows you all. In my previous city, the reporter always get it way quicker than me. So before the end of the day, there's already article out there. So it's very open, transparent. That's how we build our trust too. But also allow us to manage the program a little better, so that can improve efficiency, by everything centralized in the digital form, accuracy. You can there's usually a pull-down menu. You select once, you don't have to name your own case type. In the past, we have some mistake made by people naming commercial, for example. There are so many different ways. I found out that you can name commercial permitting, COM, COMM. So people name it differently. Sometimes you got lost in the data. But this program will allow you to standardize all of those different case types, and then you can actually extract some of the data and do analysis more accurately. And of course, transparency, I already mentioned that. So the third part, so scanning, new program, the third part we're only exploring at this moment. As I mentioned too, we have so many PUDs. It's very hard for us to master all of those. But I think we need to really think outside the box and using different tools. Of course, the new technology is AI. And we are exploring the opportunity to use AI to help us, with our zoning. And that's why I maybe possibly review some of our case types. I'm working right now with American Planning Association. No city have done this yet. So it's possible that we could be a pilot city with American Planning Association and then some professor that specialize in AI. So stay tuned on that. I think we really have to think outside the box. We really have to use new ways to do our business. We cannot just do the same old, and expect a different outcome. So we are looking at that as we speak. The last one, which is also very important, to foster a culture. I think the culture is very important. I have 430 positions. Every single one of our staff need to get in the direction, the northbound train, to do our work. And that's where, so I need to change some of the culture, that teamwork. We need to work with others, with you, with residents, with lawmakers. We also need to collaborate with everyone and be a problem solver. So that those culture change also is difficult and takes some time. So gradually, I think gradually we are in that direction. These are the department goals. Some of these goals is ongoing. Some of these goals take years, but this is something our team is very aware of. I would like to share that with you and be happy to report back on a regular basis to see what progress we have made. So with that, I'm going to turn to Andrea to talk about the data, which is very important for our department. We monitor data, we're seeing the trend, and we use this year's data as a baseline. We're trying to make improvement. We have to compare, right? So this year's data, we're going to use that as a baseline. As we implement the idea from staff and from our customers, we're hoping to make improvement in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. I know there are a lot of slides and you had access. We posted the presentation last night. It's still on the website. I'm going to go through the slides. I'm going to just point some ideas because again, it's a lot of data and probably we don't want to dive too deep into it. Main goal, I think main message that I want to, and I always say this, there is 3.5 years ago when I started as an assistant director in this position, the message was very clear for the city, from the City Plan Commission, to improve quality. And there was a big focus that we had. We knew that it's going to show in our performance, but it took a little bit of time, and I'm quite proud of the quality that we're able to achieve. And the second big one, and you always hear me say it, we are partners. So your work together with our work with the zoning team basically is a big puzzle piece in the whole development process. So as Director Liu was saying, everything that we do in here, quality and partnership, actually is felt immediately and directly at permitting. So I'm gonna introduce the team a little bit. You know the team very well, but you only know the team that works in rezonings. In the meantime, our zoning division is a little bit bigger, a little bit of an overview, some data. As I said, all the slides usually are data from this past fiscal year and then comparison for the 3 years, some accomplishments and goals, but I'm not gonna, again, talk a lot about them because Director Liu kind of like in her presentation did a sweep of all of them. A little bit about the code reform as well. I have 2 slides with our org chart, our new org chart. It's, as Emily, Director Liu was saying, our team is probably the only one in this new department that is half and half. Half old zoning team that you knew, and then we got the permitting side of zoning as well. So you can see here, this is a portion or half of the team. I kind of like mixed them a little bit to try to achieve some streamlining by inertia of how the teams are set up right now. And then obviously to kind of like make business sense, right? So on this side of the spectrum, or the side of the zoning division, you're going to see we have code amendments, and then what you see here in the middle is a lot of process and a lot of team that's focused on both permitting. But you do see this team that is with Donna Mormon, you see minor amendments, development plan, they are actually more permitting than rezoning. So that was our thinking. Also, you know, we have a little small one-person division that's focusing on strategy and process improvements. That's our migration to Acela. You all know we've been telling you for 3 years. We are paper-based. We continue to be paper-based, even if we have the JS intake log, even if we allow digital submittals right now and we work via emails, it's still paper. So that automation is going to happen, and it takes time to get a process as complex and just paper to move it into a platform. The other side is these are all the teams that are working with boards and commissions. You know some of them, you know most of them, and I also included this awesome, wonderful admin team or support team that is not in the zoning, but they are supporting every function of CPC and the zoning functions in the department. You already know Liliana Lopez, who's our CPC secretary, or Yolanda Pesina, who's also supervisor for CPC secretary and all secretaries. This is just a little portion of us. It's 60-something. This is just the ones that were not shy to send their pictures. I'd like to put pictures or faces with our department. A combination of all teams. Again, you see zoning, but you also, some of the permitting folks are in here as well. Let's dive a little bit into CPC accomplishments. Focus on zoning data. On the CPC annual report, you're going to get information about minor amendments and all of the things the CPC is doing, but because the zoning portion, you know, it's half of our agenda, and it's probably the most interesting or convoluted part of it, I wanted to present this data a little bit more in depth. The mission statement is the one that was voted and created by y'all. It's going to continue to be. Unless you are telling me today or next CPC meeting that we want to change something, please let us know. This is our mission, or your mission. Just a little bit of a CPC and committee overview. Which of the committee met this year? How many, except for the rules committee, how many times? Again, raw data, raw numbers. Let's dive a little bit into charts. As I said, you're going to see a balancing between this fiscal year and a comparison. There's a lot of data, and you know I've been giving and I've been sending to y'all very detailed tables with all the activity of CPC. I tried to choose some tables to tell a little bit of a story. As I said, my big emphasis is on partnership. So please do apply that, because I'm trying to explain that we are partners and we're working together very close. This is basically per each CPC meeting, how many total items we had for each meeting, and to see how many of them were zoning cases. As I was saying, like probably half of each agenda is always zoning cases. Kind of like dividing and comparing per 3 years. I want to make a little comment. Fiscal year 21-22, a little portion of that fiscal year we were fully staffed for like 3-4 months, and we had free flow. So if I am to take a little bit of a baseline to see how our process, paper-based, is functioning right now, I would say FY 21-22 is a good baseline to see that the way that the process is set up, it's a little bit unrealistic, or it doesn't warrant the predictability that it's set up to do. As you know, 22-23 was the year where we're severely short-staffed. So you will see in the number, it shows. And then towards the end of 22-23, which is this year, we started to come out and clear the backlog. We've been fully staffed in the zoning team for the past year. It's just that cleaning up the backlog takes a little bit. So you'll see probably towards the last of the slides that we're trying to kind of like see some numbers, that we're trying to meet our performance, which is a 4-month. So always look at FY 21-22 as a baseline, I would say, to just give you a test of how the process works or doesn't. And then I see an improvement in 20 in this last fiscal year. However, we need to improve the process because even the way it is set up right now doesn't necessarily work very well. Zoning items, for instance, how many we were able to move in this year, in this fiscal year. The cases that we moved were 191, which is way more than fiscal year 21-22 when we had free flow. So that's an important information that I would like to highlight, that again, fully staffed, moving the cases pretty fast, still didn't warrant us to move more cases. This is just a table. You're gonna get this table in the printed report or the PDF that we're gonna send to City Council. You know, I like to show data per council district as well. Acres, you know all this data, we talked about it in the previous years as well. Let's look at more charts. Case types for this last year, how many PDs, how many general zoning changes, this is per district. I think this is probably interesting information for you to see. Now look at the comparison for the last years. We see a little bit of decrease in PDs. We do see a little bit of increase in deed restrictions, so we have a little bit more general zoning changes, but we also have a little bit more deed restrictions, which is a good indicator how the code works or doesn't. Again, look at the comparison with, I would say, 21-22. You asked me in the past always to monitor housing component, and we are, because it's also a citywide goal to the production of housing, we know that. So we always try to like mark which cases and do some data analysis on that. How many cases with housing component per district for this fiscal year, now in the other fiscal years as comparison, and you could see like each district, like it had some zoning cases with housing component or it didn't, and I think that's interesting for your districts as well. Now, CPC outcome to hold. This is where I kind of like try to stress onto partnership. And I think this is a very good indicator of the quality that I started the presentation with. So you can see, I think that's very important, and what jumps at me in this slide is that 21-22, as I said, when we were fully staffed and free flow, there was a lot of hold on the agendas, as opposed to this year where we're starting to like really move the cases faster. And I think that's an indication of trust, quality of case review, and stuff that it's really hard to actually put a data on it. Let's look at the comparison per the 3 years. This is also very, very important. You're gonna see why it's important, what it's telling me. As I said, 21-23, 47% at least, I would say, or around 47% of the cases, or the, 43% of the agenda was holds, right? This is an average number per the entire year. We took that down in 29% this year, which I think, as I said, I take that as an indication of trust that we have, our good partnership, and the quality of the work that both of us are doing. Also, this 64.90 plus 5%, That's going to explain a little bit of a performance metric that I'm trying to introduce next year. This is another indication of our partnership, and that's why I choose to show data like this. As I said, a big problem that we had in the zoning team was staff retention. As you know, in an effort to basically allow staff the time to focus on the quality of review and better customer service and feel seen, we decided to balance input and output, meaning each a planner has a cap on how many cases they can review at one time. So that means that, as I said, it's a true partnership between us, City Plan Commission, and City Council, because otherwise it's very hard to achieve the quality that we're shooting for. So the way to measure that is obviously how many cases are submitted that month or that year, and how many cases are we able to discard. Now, the cases at intake, give or take, there are some cases that may be withdrawn. There are some cases that may be a different type of request. So I would apply like a 10%. And also, you know that, again, you apply the 4 months, so they are not true, like measuring the same month. Like you don't have an expectation that in the same month, how many cases you intake, that's how many you're gonna discard. However, if you look at overall data, as I was saying, 21, 22 is a good indicator. We were moving and churning a lot of cases. But look at 23, 24, which is this past year. We came, like we did intake 225 cases. 191 were with the CPC decision, which is very close to me. So to have this type of chart very close to one another is telling me that we do have a good balance income, input and output. We do, combined with the data that I showed on other slides, we do show partnership, we do show quality increase as well. More timeframes, same. Try to hold, especially staff and the process accountable. The process, as it is said right now, accountable. Let's look a little bit of phases of process, and this is very important because Acela, I'm hoping, is going to fix a lot of that, and also we're trying to fix a little bit of that. So this is a representation per district. Let me stop at each phase. Submittal to ZRT. That time frame includes how long the cases may sit on a shelf to wait for a planner, which depends on the output, of course, but also includes the time the case is under review with a planner. So it's not like, oh, that entire blue chart is how much it's set on the shelf. It also includes the time that it was under review, first round of review. ZRT to first CPC. This is usually the back and forth between staff and the applicant, so a lot of that may be that the case was complex, needed a lot of number of reviews. However, keep in mind that the processing for CPC is also like 3 weeks, or something like that, which is paper, right? So a lot of turning paper is adding a lot of these days to the process. So I say that the orange or the yellow chart is an indication that the case sits with the applicant or in reviews for a long time, but it also is an indication that the paper kind of like adds days to the process. First CPC date to City Council, if that is bigger, it means the CPC held it, but also keep in mind the preparation to schedule a case after CPC to Council is a month and a half at least, and Council also doesn't meet in July, and they have different scheduling. So that is also a little bit skewed by the paper process and by the alignment of the meetings. And you can see, obviously, the total timeframes per district and all of that. And so when you're looking at this chart and how it fluctuates, keep in mind a part of it is the paper nature of it, a part of it is the due process nature of it. It is stuck in public hearings, which is right because it needs to be vetted. And some of it is because the output, because it gets stuck into those, we don't have the output, so we can balance the input as well. Now, show the same type of information, but for this fiscal year, Same, which phase of the process too long? What I introduced in here is this red line. This red line is how the process is set up right now. The process is set up, that's the expectation that we put out there for the public to be 120, 130 days from submittal to City Council. And you can see each line of this shows how much of that is eaten by different phases of the process. Of course, we are like NUC per month. Of course, we're not meeting that performance. But look at what happened in 21, 22, when, again, we were free flow. We didn't meet that performance either. So again, it tells me that the expectation is not realistic. The process is a little bit more complex and convoluted. We're going to have to fix that in some way. Another important part that I would like to highlight, the way I look at these lines, I don't like that they do this, but it's normal probably. I would like them to be a little bit more flat. So the fact that we do have, for instance, April, when we do have a spike, tells me a little bit. I do want them to either be flat, close to 130 days, or at least to trend back downwards, which I would say 2020, like this past fiscal year, kind of does. And you do have the number of days that it takes, the real days. As I said, take a baseline of 21, 22, when we were free flow for, let's say, half a year, which it's still 185 days. It's not 130 at all. And like this year, when I think we're coming out of the backlog and we're way starting to operate under free flow, like we cut a lot of the time, but still we need to come to lower number of days. Overall processing times, and this is very, very important, but keep in mind this is data based on City Council outcome. This is very important for me to show you because you see what you see in green are the cases that were in the expected time frame. I put the expected time frame at 4-6 months just because, as I said, Council and CPC days don't always align. So sometimes I would say, okay, 6 months, it's still reasonable, although it's not, but I'm trying to be a little bit realistic in the way the paper process is set up right now. So you can see we had all 20 through 22 past fiscal year, it was all at zero. We were never able to meet the performance or the expected time frame with any of the cases because of the backlog and short staffing. The fact that we started with short staffing at the mid-year or beginning of year of 21, 22, and only now, after 2.5 or 3 years, we're starting to see the daylight, it tells me a lot about what losing staff actually does to the process. So that, again, tells me that whenever we're losing 1-2 people, it's going to hit, and these numbers are going to show that. So I love that we're starting to see, you see in August, we were like almost probably at 40% of the cases were in the time frame. September, October, November, they're going to show even better. The fact that I have a little bit of a green chart in here, it's very helpful to me. To the next slide, I'm going to explain a little bit. Probably it's not realistic to have an expectation that 80 or 90 or 100% of the cases are going to hit the 130 mark because it is a discretionary process that involves public hearings. Other initiatives, so this is with the data. I'm going to slide pretty fast through what's coming next. For Dallas, Director Liu already talked about it. We did some code amendments. We're going to do way more, obviously, this coming year. Parking reform is coming to a briefing next hearing. We did authorized hearings in Conservation District. You're going to have another Conservation District coming next hearing as well. Now, let's see, goals. And you'll see this red asterisk, and I will explain. Those numbers, we're going to do everything possible to hold on to them, but this is a partnership we have with you all. Those numbers are going to be deeply affected, immediately affected by how long it takes to review it and get it ready for CPC and how long it takes to go through CPC. I put 65% because I was trying to look at what we're doing by inertia this year, which was, I showed you 65% of the cases actually were approval. Let's say if we put even the denial, it's still a decision. That can increase at 70%, right? Another thing that I wanted to point to y'all is we're trying, that's what we're doing right now. It's going to take a little logistics and a little bit of time to take down the 130 days to 90 days. We have an idea. A lot of cities are doing it, trying to notice both CPC and council on the same notice. Because probably, as I said, 65% of the cases or 70% of the cases we have on the agenda, they are discarded in the same meeting. So they do have a set council date. But as I said, it really depends on the partnership and it takes a little bit of a logistics. So I'm hoping that by cutting that process, that paper pushing between CPC and council, I can cut 30 days, which is a month, and maybe we can have a big percentage of cases at that time. Submit all to ZRT, we said maximum 20 days, which is what it said anyway. It includes the review of the planners, submittal to CPC 60 days. Let's hope we can get there, because that's kind of like what we've seen in the past year. Focus on the pre-application part of the process. We already started to do that. All hands on deck approach to zoning review, which goes into what Emily, Director Liu was saying regarding internal streamlining and better communication and collaboration. And the concierge type approach for development applications. So we're not talking just about zoning review, because that's what we do right now. We have a concierge approach. You do have a case planner, and the case planner is actually the manager of the case from submittal to city council. We want to increase that to have that type of approach for the entire development process, especially for the cases that are moving fast and they are a little bit more convoluted. It's in the works. We're gonna, that's what we're migrating, and we're doing it a little bit of ad hoc. Michael Pepe and Jennifer Algar are doing it with the TODs, for instance. Priorities, as I said, the double noticing is what I explained. The digital submittal option, we're setting it up, and that's in preparation of Excella. The launch of Excella is set for this coming summer, so please, if you talk to your community, your applicants, and it's the same with us, it is a big deal for us moving from paper straight to an automated platform. Please do show kindness. We're trying, we push that launch date as much as we can. We're testing right now. We're gonna continue to test to make sure that it's a smooth launch. I'm hoping we're gonna do everything in our power to be like 100% success, but we do need your partnership and kindness, and the applicant's partnership and kindness as well, to make sure that that is a success. Because as we know, moving from paper to any kind of digital may have also a little bit of hiccups. The digitization of the entire zoning archive and making it possible to the public. I know I've been telling you this for 3 years. I'm so thankful of Director Liu. Finally, we do have the resources, money, and people allocated to that. So I will say again, it's gonna happen, because finally we have a path forward. The realignment and everything, you already heard this from Emily and myself a few times. We've taken some steps, sometimes it's hard to acknowledge the successes and the steps that I've taken, because you still see the numbers. It still takes me 250 days to go through the process. However, we have taken a lot of steps, and we will continue to take small or big ones. I think we have a better partnership as well, and we're gonna continue on this. Goals for the code reform. The way we're gonna approach it is to work very close with Fort Dallas. So between me and Andrea, and obviously the teams, that's gonna be seen in the way we're gonna set the strategy, how we're gonna deliver the code reform. We are shooting to deliver phases of code amendments per year. And the need for rezoning is what Director Liu was saying, like we wanna make sure that we create a code that works. I am very, very detailed. I have a very detailed, focused approach, and I do have a metric on the reduction of applications for zoning that we get, because I'm trying to see if that decreases as a result of a good code. And obviously, if we didn't do code amendments, I don't see a decrease in those applications. So it's just the market. But that's a metric that I will continue to monitor. Ideally, if you have a good code, you don't have a need, right, for rezone because you align the market needs with the code. So that's a metric that I'm going to continue to monitor. There's nothing to show right now. It's 0. First quarter of the 2025, we want to continue to create the brand. We are working to launch a website. So first things first, we're going to launch a website so you have, if the public has direct access to all the information, all the steps. We're going to create an engagement framework and refine it with community input. We want to do the code reform together with you all and the community. And the first thing that we want to launch is a diagnosis of the current code. Our consultant is already working on that, but we want to have the website first and an engagement strategy before we start like bringing in front of you the diagnosis, which means what works and doesn't work right now. And then in the phasing, as I said, process improvements for rezoning, we probably are going to need to like tweak a little bit the code to make sure that that double noticing CPC and council works. And then, you know, everything that we talked about, TODs, how to preserve communities and neighborhoods, and then all the environmental justice piece. Those are going to for sure be at the forefront. Parking is happening anyway. I just wanted to bring to your attention, we're going to continue to dump a lot of data into the GIS intake log. I think it's way better right now. As I said, on our main webpage, all of these digital application forms, zoning map, zoning intake log, zoning cases map, they are embedded to make it easier for you and the public to access it. I just did a little print screen of this. If you go onto our zoning changes webpage, you can access this map, for instance. We're going to continue to pump data into the software that shows this map to make sure that it's always up to date. That was something that we were also short-staffed. Now we have the resources to do that. And thank you so much for your patience to let me go through the presentation.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Houseright, please.
Got a couple of compliments and then a couple of questions. I'd certainly compliment the service first philosophy that Ms. Liu identified earlier in the presentation. You know, as the largest city in North Texas, we need to be exemplary in everything we do and sort of reestablish ourselves as a place where people want to do business. And so compliment you on that. I'll tell you from personal experience, a project I'm working on right now, we had a Q team meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was a really, really great experience. It was very professional, very well organized. There was a case manager. It was a virtual meeting. There were a number of us on the design and client side. There were, I suppose, a dozen from City of Dallas, and it was a really good experience. I just wanted to pass that along. I wanted to ask you about the 112 days for a permit. We're talking about a building permit there. Is that correct?
It's commercial permit is a medium meaning, you know, that's in the middle.
Right.
And that's just for that 1 month. We'll see down. We're hoping to see the trend continue.
But
yeah, it's a medium days. It's actually, it's not the entire commercial. That's why I see it's like the way they query the data is, but it's consistent throughout the month. It's not the entire, it's sampling pretty much.
Okay. Do you know how that compares to other cities around the country of our size?
Depends. Some city, I tell you, the worst one I just heard a month ago from the planning director from Denver. I don't know whether he's a new director. They are going to hopefully reorganize the department. The worst one, that's the worst one I ever heard. He said it took 13 years. I don't know. And the best one, my good friend in Memphis, is 2 weeks. 2 weeks, but it took him 5 years to get there. They totally realigned. 2 weeks, a commercial permit. I'm not advertising for them, but.
You know, I hear the residential builders and contractors talk about a day where they could go down and do their simple permits over the counter.
Yes, we still have that available.
we've put that back in place and? we can do that?
Yeah, we have the same day permitting, we still have that available. They come in and get the permit the same day for very simple residential. Residential side, over the year, we have streamlined quite a bit. So right now is average about, medium is about, used to be like 60-some day, now is about 7-8 days. Residential permits, residential include single family and duplex only. Anything above that, apartments still will considered commercial.
Okay, that's great. So I may know someone who was advised by a builder to not permit the project, so, well, that was just a hearsay. On the technology side, you mentioned a new software platform that you're implementing.
Yes, Acela.
Okay.
Next summer is a goal to launch that.
Okay, okay. And you talked about needing to go back and enter old data. Is that really necessary? Can you just implement the technology and move forward and then catch up on digitizing old data later?
We are definitely, priority is moving forward to submit the plans in digital form so that we don't have to discuss. That's the goal. At the same time, the secondary priority is going backwards because a lot of time it's not available online. It's really make it easier, but it's a separate group of people. We have archive people focus on this. We have some capacity there. We got some a little bit budget. So in other city, for example, the city I used to work to at, is very helpful. So we did two ways. We implement Acela, 7-8 years ago. And the same time prior to that, we digitized all the zoning cases all the way back to 1975. And we did naming convention, everything in coordination with this digital submittal. When Acela launched, we basically transfer those data into Acela. And then now, if you're looking at 1975 zoning case, sometimes you do a revised development plan, right? You go back, it's right there, digitally available online to everybody. It's not our highest priority right now, but I think that's something we need to work on as well, digitizing the entire file, that's a goal. But we're going to do a little at a time, focusing on moving forward.
Okay. Lastly, on the hiring challenges, the staffing challenges, is outsourcing an option to help in the short term?
We are also sourcing as we speak. For the zoning, I believe we have a consultant, but they're doing some smaller cases right now. That definitely, we appreciate that because sometimes it does help us clear the backlog. In the permitting side, we have a consultant with us, Safe Build as well. They offer even a couple of inspectors. One of them is plumbing, as I mentioned. It's a big challenge, but even they have a little challenge hiring people, a certain trade. And I talked to a nonprofit just last week, trying to see if we can start going, even further to see if we can help them have classes training the trade to give us some, but that take time, that take a year. Immediate needs, we do go to private sector and ask for help. Yeah, we do have some,
Great.
but still just not enough, look like.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Chernot.
Thank you for the presentation. I thought it was great and inspiring. And wanted to circle back on the question about PDs. You mentioned that we're over 1,100 PDs now, and I heard somewhere that made up about a quarter of the land mass in Dallas.
About 20%. I looked at the map the other day. 20% of the land in Dallas is PD related. Even though we're going to have the zoning overhaul, this is a legal question. We're still trying to figure out, how we're going to do with the PDs. About 20%. Is that right?
Oh, yes, I want to add, it's not just that, it's a lot of story, and we'll create maps for those, we already have them. downtown is PDs, uptown is PDs. So the areas that are the ones that are prime and very active in development, those are PDs as well, very complex ones, as you all know.
So is there, when we go into do zoning reform, is there going to be an override of PDs, or the PDs going to trump the zoning reform, or does it depend on the specific aspect of the PD?
This is a question we've been talking to our attorney back and forth. I think we'll probably eventually figure, even the consultant on this project has some legal team to advise us. We don't have an exact answer at this moment, but hopefully, you know, we can address this somehow. You know, may not be all 1,100, maybe some of them.
Is there in any other municipalities in the country, have they had any kind of success or program or passed law where there's a sunsetting of ones that are, I don't know, over 20 years old, 25, 30?
Yes, in talks to our consultant, and I do want to have a presentation with them and very, very informed about this. Yes, there were municipalities that did find solutions to address that even retroactively. That's why I'm saying we're looking at those. It's not a news. We don't know what the answer is yet, but I would like probably to have a presentation discussion only about that.
I have one last question on the PDs. Often I get approached in my district with people that want to submit a zoning application, and they know of PDs, and they often think that's the go-to. And I've heard through the process that they're, obviously we want to steer people, or we want to steer away from the direction of just using that as the first go-to. But is there sort of a 1, 2, 3 that I could share with people on why, when a PD is applicable? Because we're still going to have probably years before we have the reform in place or a game plan in place on how to manage the PDs. But in the meantime, what are the 1, 2, 3 sort of talking points that we can share with applicants to say, this is why we don't want to do PDs, or here's when they're applicable and here's when they're not?
I kind of have a little bit fresh eye looking at the PD in Dallas. Sorry, I'm not very modest, right? And I'm just saying, it's so liberal. In other city, you need a minimum size, right? 50 acre, whatever. I was told we have as little as 5,000 square feet as a PD, and that should never meant to a PD. You can, if you want to go regular, it doesn't work, you can have waivers and variants. That's okay, but for a small site like that, allowing PD, it's kind of blow my mind. I mean, other cities I've worked with and talked to, they all have a minimum standards for PDs. For large areas, very brand new communities, something like that, it may work. I mean, I think even after the zoning reform, we may still get a little request here, but it makes sense. We must set the minimum standards moving forward with the reform.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, probably to, I don't even know, to create a checklist. We wanted to do that. It doesn't work because it's so open right now. But the way we do it, for instance, in our pre-application or meetings with applicants, we're telling them, can you please do a comparison? Show us what can you do with your base code right now? What do you need? Why do you need to change it? If you are to change it to a base zoning, what would work? And then tell us exactly what doesn't work. And if it warrants, like, okay, it's something, it's not one, it's 1, 2, 3, something so outrageous, like the FAR will never work, I get more units, setbacks. But even setbacks, there are a lot of things you can go to Board of Adjustment. You don't need like to create a PD just for things you already have a process in place. So we're trying to establish with them, are you even, you have to convince somehow that you cannot develop by right, not by right, in any base zoning. And then we always tell the applicants, and that's, I think, what the commission does so naturally that we forget, because the PD is such a big exception from the rule, we are trying to get community benefits. So I do understand that this is your need because the market doesn't make sense, anything that's in our base code right now. And if you are to have this big deviation, because that's how your project is so unique, okay, then let us come with community benefits that are so unique due to your unique project. So that's where we get into conversations with them about affordable housing, open space, sidewalks, things that the community can use. So that's how we always, that's why I'm saying PDs take a longer time. Another one that I want all of you, be aware, a PD 90% of the time comes with a development plan. That development plan is just that permit. You cannot develop anything else. That's what's in the development plan. And if that development plan is done, and we say this all the time, is very early in the process to know everything about easements, everything about platting, everything about the internal configuration of your building that will change the site layout. You do it with a development plan here. You invest a lot of money, you invest a lot of promises into a portion of the process that is unknown to you because you don't have entitlements yet. And then you go to permitting with that development plan that actually is changed, and we say, sorry, you cannot pull a permit because you're changing, and then you're coming back, and then it skews all numbers. That's why developers are saying it takes me years to do to do permitting in Dallas, because the second you have a development plan, that's it. Like, that's it. I can guarantee you, this is probably, I need to put a data, and we will put a data monitoring on that. How many of the permits are usually held because they're in a PD, because the regulations don't necessarily make sense when you start to cite it out, or because the development plan, the way we did it a year ago, was not what we actually intended to build.
Commissioner Kingston.
Okay, I'll just stay on the topic of PDs. I do agree that we, in theory, PD should be a certain size. And I personally would reserve judgment until we see updated code provisions. I mean, I've seen what other cities that have more modern codes do and how they get around the necessity to have something like PDs in order to be able to develop their cities. So I know it's possible. But what I would say to you is this sort of visceral reaction staff has to PDs is not popular with the development community and the residents, because there's a long history of distrust, and you all are going to have to deliver a product that demonstrates that you can create these projects that deliver the same high quality and controls that PDs offer with a base code, or a base code plus other tools like deed restrictions, before you're going to get the buy-in you're looking for from some of us sitting here today, from people in the development community, from residents. The reason we have so many PDs and PD subdistricts is a long history in this city of lack of those type of controls. And so when you say, I hate PDs and PDs are terrible and we should never use them, I just don't think that that's an opinion that is shared by a whole lot of people, including policymakers. So I just think you have to, I understand where you're coming from a statistical standpoint, but the benefit of PDs and why people use them is because it allows them to create very specific projects that meet very specific needs in an area or a community, and it allows very detailed community input into those projects, and at the same time allows policymakers to get very specific things as community givebacks that our current code doesn't do. And so until you start producing something that shows we can do that without trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, you're going to continue to have that pushback. And so I would just, I mean, that's my 2 cents on the PDs. In other words, I'm not sold yet. and I'm not the only one. But I do think in theory that there should be some limitations on size and how they're used, and certainly using the base code to do more of our development. I mean, to your point, the benefit of a detailed development plan is it forces the developer to really look at their land and what they plan to do early in the process, and everybody kind of knows what they're signing off on early in the process. The downside is just what you talked about. They find something, an easement they didn't know about, or some other aspect of the land, whether it's an infrastructure component they didn't know about or whatever that has to be dealt with, and then they have to come back and get an amendment or whatever. I get it. That's my 2 cents on that. Questions? You said you were considering, and maybe I misunderstood you, some process where you would declare PDs invalid. Are you considering just doing that without a public process? Because
I'm not, actually, I'm not suggesting to make them invalid. I think there's still a discussion. I think if we really have to do some PDs been there for a long time, maybe after the overhaul of the zoning, everything the PD needs already accommodated. In my opinion, I mean, there's something we still need to talk to your council. You probably do like authorized hearing to, but I don't think you can just automatically, we don't know there's a process. There's not a lot of city across the country that facing what we're facing now. I have a discussion with Boston, which is kind of rebel hours. They are in the same boat, like they're looking at the legal ramifications right now. There's no clear-cut answer. So I will continue to talk to other city who have a lot of PD in the process doing overhaul and what they're dealing with that. I think at this time, we're not saying just automatically without public input. That's not what we're saying. But I think we need to figure out a way how to address those if we need to address the existing PDs. But we don't have a clear answer on that one. I think that's really
I actually think there's a very clear answer about legally what we can and cannot do with existing zoning rights in the state of Texas.
Yeah,
but
I agree with you on that. We still explore that in the next few years.
And then on your list of priorities, the thing I did not see anywhere listed was authorized hearings. What do you plan to do with those? I mean, are we ever going to do those again?
Yeah, those are definitely priority. It's kind of, I can't have them any, so it's under the implementation of Forward Dallas, and also, that's where it's definitely part of the 7 goals, part of that. It's ongoing as well. We have authorized hearing a team, although the team is like at 40% capacity right now. So we're trying to build up that team. We just expanded that. It's ongoing. It's ongoing as we speak. Also right here, there is a backlog on that one. There's a backlog on that one. There's backlog on other things. But it's part of the work we do. Streamline the process is not specific saying a case type. Authorized hearing is a case type, not listed there, but it's part of the work.
Well, I understand that authorized hearings could be part of implementation of Forward Dallas, but there's also authorized hearings that aren't part of implementation of Forward Dallas.
Yes.
And my understanding is we're looking at, what, a 5-year backlog in authorized hearings?
It's a number of years, but that also addressing goal number 5. We're going to streamline the process, looking at all. So it's not just under Forward Dallas. Forward Dallas has its own priority. We have an ongoing authorized hearing that we're working with. I would be happy to get a little bit more detail on that and have a separate meeting with you if you want.
Well, I appreciate that. I think everybody would like more detail on what's the plan for addressing our backlog for authorized hearings. When are we going to get serious about doing authorized hearings? If we're not going to do it, let's stop telling people that they should apply for them. If we are going to do it, what's the process? How do you get a place in line? Who gets to cut in line? What's a reasonable expectation for getting them done? They've been in a quagmire for years. I know you inherited this, so I'm not aiming this at you, but they're in your lap now, and somebody's got to take on dealing with years of backlog of authorized hearings, and they didn't even make your list, and I'm not hearing that there's any kind of concrete plan to deal with them. And so maybe that's the subject of another briefing, but I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for developers. It's frustrating for people who, communities are waiting for years to even start the process.
I definitely understand your concern. I acknowledge that we have a backlog. I am looking at that actually just right now as we speak. That is something I'm working with staff. As I said, we recently reassign another staff to that team so we can build out the capacity. I am looking at all the cases with staff and come up with like at least a schedule. If it's backlog, in how long. So we are working on that. As I said, I would like to get back with you on that as we speak. We are working on that very subject.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I had.
Thank you. Commissioner,
More question.
Please.
Do you have an ETA on the potential consideration of changes to the development code, the residential development code, to increase the number of units?
I just presented to the Economic Development Committee Monday, this Monday. So we got a green light from City Council, we're going there. I told them we're going to bring back recommendation early next year, about 4 months process. Some city takes a few years, some city take 3 months. So I think 4 months is something depends on whether we need some outside help or not. So we are working on that. I'm working with staff, and also there's a code board when you go through there, and potentially a task force. I'm thinking about maybe we have a task force, architects, developers, planners, engineer get together and look at it all together. Some city are doing only focus on the number of units, like Memphis, for example, they put 6 units in the residential. Some city in Nashville not only look at the unit, they're also looking at the single staircase. I think I would like to look at both because the single staircase it's probably going to reduce costs a lot more. Without compromising safety, I need to engage the fire professionals to be into the discussion. So, that's something I'm very excited about. So something we'll be able to help City Council and get recommendation to them in about 4 months.
So you think you'll be making recommendations to council and by Q1 next year?
Early next year, yes, about March-ish, I will say. Some recommendation, of course, is up to the City Council to adopt. As I mentioned, we are very unique and very fortunate that the City Council does have the ability to modify international code. Right. Other cities may not even have the ability to do that. So something is a unique opportunity. City of Paso is doing that. Austin is doing that. Nashville is doing that. Portland, all these other cities, even at the national level, this is a hot subject. So we are not like breaking the ground even. We are just trying to get some best practice, make sure we address the safety side of things. So definitely we're working on that. And I know you're interested in that, and I'll be happy to talk to you on that in more details as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Blair, and I'll follow you.
Hi, I think maybe I want to actually piggyback on something that Commissioner Housewright said about the mechanizing all of the data that is there, whether to start from day one and move forward or to go and go back and do all of those last things. I know, and you guys, and I know Dr. Udera is aware that I like to go searching, and I hate to ask when I go searching, but I have to pull old documents. Is there a possibility that you guys can start from, like flash cut, meaning that you start today, you mechanize with whatever you get today while you're working on going back and doing those old documents, or this say Documents that are older than 5 years, they will not be mechanized. Order from 5 years from this particular date will not be mechanized, and you will still have to get a paper copy. But those that are, but while we are moving forward, we will start mechanizing those that are older.
The way we're planning to do is go backwards, meaning say this year's or last year, we'll start from there and we go backwards, not going like 75. So like 2024, 23, all of that. It depends on how many resources we have. It's a big endeavor. And sometime our resources may not take that far all the way back. So we're starting from the recent years and going backwards. Does that answer your question?
Yes, because I know that there are some like deed restrictions that are already mechanized. SUPs are not mechanized. You can go on you can go on the zoning intake and get the actual applications if you know the zoning request number. So there are some things that are mechanized already and some things that are not.
So that is the issue that we find out is not very consistent. Even one particular case, for example, partially digitized, partially not. So one of the projects we have to do, we have to be very careful about that. We need to have a consistent naming convention about getting the details. And then we need to look at a complete file, have a list. The goal is by the time we finish digitizing that specific case, everything is complete. Right now, some of the cases in paper, the partial part of the cases in paper, some of those in digital. So we need to make sure it's consistent as well. So one of the reasons we do digitize is also organize the file. That's one of the tasks. Have a checklist, make sure everything is in there when we scan. Not only that, it has to be in a specific order. So if you look at this file, the first page is what? So you know what you're looking at down the road. Usually the approved plan is the first one looking at the minutes. There are certain sequence you want to put it in there as well. So there's a lot of work.
I can answer to say that I talked to, we do, that's why I'm saying I'm so thankful for Director Liu. We're creating a team, we already have a lead for the digitization. They already assure me that SUPs are first. Because I keep on saying that that's the big need that we have, even you, the customers, code compliance, us. So yes, SUPs are first.
Well, yeah, because I know code would really love to have them digitized. Not to belabor any of the conversations that we've already had, but just really quickly, I know when the way I seem to appreciate general zonings and deed restrictions, naming the way that we use them, whether it's what we want opposed to what we don't want. And then when those deed restrictions are no longer valid, when you digitize them, would you consider pulling those that are no longer valid? So if I have a general zoning case that had several deed restrictions and those deed restrictions are then pulled or no longer valid, would you pull those deed restrictions out of the database so that they could not be seen?
Yes, that's how the zoning map works. So every zoning outcome from city council, it's accurately represented on the map. So it's the same with SUPs. You won't see the expired SUPs on the zoning map, which some complain because you need to have a little bit of a history of SUPs for a site. So we're trying to find a solution there, but the zoning map is always updated after council decision.
And just ask, because I stay in GIS. Can you make it easy to use?
Yes, it's with Andrea. Yes, we're working on that. Thank you.
But Andrea got a PhD. So I have to remind her that average people may not be able to understand that. So I think the best way is to have multiple access, not just GIS. And people say, hey, you look at the case, look at the GIS. People will ask you, what is GIS, right? So I want to make sure this is accessible to a lot of people who don't have a planning background, who don't have a, and that's something, we're constantly talking about in the office as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Carpenter, I'll follow you.
I'm going to go back to PDs, because it's been, fairly recognizable over the last few months that the planners have been directed in their case reports and their analysis of these zoning requests to look for a straight zoning solution. But in districts in the city that have a lot, we'll call them environmental justice or injustice areas, where you have a lot of incompatible adjacencies, or you have industrial areas that are trying to move out of the industrial quagmire into some sort of mixed-use environment that accommodates some perhaps acceptable light industry and some residential. There is no straight zoning solution in the current code. So, there will be, and I think a lot of the planners and a lot of the consultants don't come from areas that have those issues, so they don't give them the full weight that I think they deserve. And so I think there still will be some PDs coming forward unless we can get, there will definitely be PDs coming forward in District 6 that are confronting those kinds of issues until such time as there is a code amendment or code reform that really looks hard at these sorts of issues. And as Commissioner Kingston was saying, there's also a lot of distrust in these communities as to what's actually going to happen, and PDs give them, and even development plan, give them a certain amount of certainty. So I think that's some nuance to the PD situation that you may not have considered quite as much. I would like to reiterate that prioritizing the digitization of SUPs is really, really important. It's important for police, it's important for code, it's important for neighbors, because we go to a lot of trouble to, the code says, okay, it has to have an SUP, you have to have conditions, and they're supposed to follow them. But if anyone responsible for enforcing the conditions can't find what the conditions are easily, that's a problem. So if that could be a more important priority as far as your digitization process, that would be a big plus for my area. And if there is a way to make it easier for the average layperson right now to find zoning and the zoning map, a very clearly readable, easy to understand zoning map that doesn't require toggling filters on and off right now, because it's a real headache right now. It used to be very straightforward, and now I get lots and lots of, I do lots of training on how to decipher this. It's not a good use of my time or anyone else's time. I do have a question. How did the 130 days get set as the normal time frame for getting a case from intake to City Council? That seems wildly optimistic, and have we ever met it? Who sets that?
Thank you for that question. That's how the schedule that we share with the public is. And if you look, we always have it on the website. We do have a CPC scheduling. We have submittal dates, ZRT dates, CPC dates, and City Council dates and deadlines for the applicants. That's the expectation we have. I don't know, it was set, that's how I found it. It's set based on a paper process. The City Hall it itself, it's migrating a little bit to automation.
But where does that standard exist? Are you saying it actually is written down somewhere, that's what our expectation is?
Yeah, it's if you go to the City Plan Commission website, you will see CPC schedule, and that's where it is. That colored table that we're working with, that's what it says.
Does that seem realistic to you that it's ever going to be met?
That's what I remember my slide with FY 2021-22 when we were
at 185 or whatever it was.
No, because as I said, it's a due process. It's public. It's discretionary public hearings, It is a good baseline, it is a good guideline for the applicants. I can, and as I showed you on the last slide, how is it? I think the last city council hearings, we were like at 40% of the cases did meet that. So it's doable for a simple general zoning change, for a simple SUP where you don't have to go back and forth. It is doable without a doubt, but not as a baseline for everything.
Well, it might cause less frustration to have a dual baseline then for, some certain types of cases, because I mean, that's a common question I get all the time is, how quickly am I going to get my zoning case through? Can I do it in, no, it's not going to take 4 months. It's going to take 6 months, 9 months, something like that, if it's a complex case. But anyway, I did have one question about the closing out of stale permits. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that means? I mean, I know there's a lot of different kind of permits. You're saying someone pulls a permit, and what makes it go stale? A certain amount of time has elapsed, or someone never called for a final inspection? What is going on
I'm
there?
talking about the permitting side, not the zoning side. If it's more than 180 days without any activity, like there is no information or there's no, what we did is that we didn't just automatically, there's actually an ordinance saying if it's over 180 days, we should expire that. What we've been doing the last couple months is that we contact the applicant,
Okay, so there is some kind of inspection, follow-up or contact that goes,
we contact them first, and most of them say, yeah, I'm not moving forward, and then that we just go ahead and close that. So we did send out emails trying to contact them before some of those been sitting there for years.
Okay, does this apply to, say, applications for certificates of occupancy as well?
This is just for permitting, like when they submit a permit before they get a permit, yes. So we are only looking at that right now.
Okay.
If you submit a permit today and nothing, we give you the comments, make some changes, nothing coming back within 180 days, we call it still permit, expired permit. We're going to expire that. But if you have a permit, say a very complex project, you keep working on it, that's still an active permit. And it may take a year or two. Some bigger project does take some time.
Okay, do certificates of occupancy fall under your jurisdiction?
Yes.
Because one of the problems that we have, especially with illegal land uses, is they pull an application for a certificate of occupancy for a use that's much more benign than what they're actually doing. A metal salvage plant will apply for a certificate of occupancy for an office or an office showroom warehouse or something, and maybe they operate for a couple of years, and it's just on the books as an application for a certificate of occupancy that's never had any follow-up. Is there any follow-up that goes on there?
Once they got certificate to occupy that, they unless they have other conditions, they are good.
Now, I'm talking about an application that was pulled, but it was never finalized.
Oh, you mean they file a COA?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe I have to get back with you. There is a time as well.
Okay, I'll
but
follow.
I will follow up with you on that.
Okay, I'll do the
They
same.
do submit a COA before they get a COA. That's what you're talking about, right? I'll follow up with you on that.
Right.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you.
Yes. And I do want to emphasize that we are prioritize SUP for scanning.
Thank
so that's
you.
our number one priority right now.
Yes, Ms. Udrea has heard this request from me repeatedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hampton, I'll follow you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. It was, I think, very helpful to see a lot of the data points and the information. I was also very glad to see the NSOs as part of the implementation on our code plans. I know that's something in my community that has been an ongoing challenge, so look forward to seeing that development. The two questions I wanted to maybe make sure that I understood the timeline a little bit more were on community planning, and if this needs to be a follow-up conversation, I'm glad to do that. I've had a number of requests from the community for areas that we're searching for that, where they've got an understanding that that needs to be. I could just get, that's something that, it's been, for us before now. and implement that. But just to be able to follow up with the community would be helpful.
Did you catch that? Commissioner
Yeah.
Hampton, your
My-
voice was coming, the mic was coming on and off. Do you want to maybe text me your question? I'm happy to read it, or if you can try to repeat it.
And I can follow up. It was just a question about community meetings that came out of the Forward Dallas process and when those are planned to be scheduled. Community planning.
Sorry, yes, thank you for the question. So that's also one of the for Dallas implementation, we have focus areas and a lot of that. Yeah, we do have a team, it's with Andrea Gillis, community planning with Patrick Blades, and they are planning to pick up on that. So yeah, that probably, I don't know, I won't necessarily volunteer, but it's a good conversation to have with Andrea, and we will let her know.
Okay, and I'll follow up on that. And just one other comment, I think we've all talked about PDs a lot, but one thing I think would be helpful as staff is looking at this is particularly throughout District 2, we have a lot of what would be considered older PDs that were developed directly with planning staff and that have been relied on for stabilizing communities, managing growth, and a lot of areas that are a lot of displacement. Gentrification, and as staff is looking at PDs generally, I think being mindful of some of the prior planning efforts and where we are today would be, I think, helpful as we're talking to communities and looking at those. So look forward to hearing more about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Forsyth?
Director Liu, I was pleased that you had part of your presentation that you plan to make it easier, for neighborhoods to, apply for a neighborhood stabilization overlay. I was curious if you could kind of maybe explain a little bit what your goal is there. Is it to, make it, so that it doesn't take as long or is not as quite as stringent? And also, does that apply to conservation districts as well?
Yes, thank you for the question, Commissioner Forsyth. Yeah, that's one of the implementation for Dallas. Remember, one of the big recommendations was find adequate tools to protect neighborhoods. Yeah, we're going to come up with a plan. That's part of why for Dallas, implementation of for Dallas is phase 1 of the code reform, right? I will just tell you that staff is already working to look at the NSOs to make sure that we can provide a tool that is more usable. The barrier to entry into NSOs right now for neighborhoods is pretty high, and they're pretty hard to use. So staff is, we already have an open code amendment by our own doing because we felt that we need to do that. And I think we're gonna look at more tools for preservation. It's not just, yes, you are right, like let's look, do we need to change a barrier to entry or what conservation district do? Do we need to find ways to, and I had like a slide on that, design standards or pattern books or stuff like that for selected neighborhoods or focus areas. And I would, and thank you for reminding me, I wanted to make a comment regarding Commissioner Carpenter's comment regarding environmental justice. Yes, I will say same. That's why implementation of for Dallas is phase 1 of the code reform, because if Andrea's team is going to focus on the areas for environmental justice, and some of them need to be lighter services that are not so noxious, and we don't have a zoning district for that, we need to have that as a code reform right now. So thank you for that. You're spot on. That's what we're doing. Both of these are at the forefront of the code reform as well.
Commissioner Herbert?
I'll be quick just to lean on the PDs again and talk about trust. Thank you for the presentation. I reviewed it thoroughly over the last couple of days, and there's a lot there. It's a lot of work that needs to be done, and you guys seem to have a plan for it. As you move forward, as we talk about PDs, the PDs I've noticed in my district have room for manipulation a lot, and that's where we lose trust, right? And these are more recent PDs. I think the older PDs maybe have been more restrictive But if we sit with a neighborhood about a PD and we say this is going to be for a small scale project, and then the developer comes in and puts a large scale project there, and there's room for that, how did we fail the citizens, right? So as we talk about trust and looking at the PDs and the code, consider those things. Consider the neighbors themselves and how these things can be manipulated. Rules will always be broken. There are ways, people will find ways to break them, I understand. But if we can be more cognizant of those types of protections where development code and PDs won't be manipulated, I'd appreciate that. But thank you guys for the work.
Thank you. I guess I'll just, Vice Chairman, please.
Yeah, very quickly, thank you both. This was a great presentation. I really liked the format this year as the slide deck, very easy to digest. Just two quick comments. I wanted to echo Commissioner Kingston's comments about authorized hearing. It would be great to get an update or periodic updates on where things are. You know, I can remember maybe it was towards the end of the Pierre Chaco era. I think that was the last time we got an update on sort of the prioritization process. So reiterating that for us too would be fantastic, because, you know, those are kind of out of sight, out of mind for me, but keeping us up to date on those would be super helpful. The other thing I'll add is that as y'all sort of rework your processes to make things more efficient, if there are ways that we can partner with y'all there, because, you know, when I take over a zoning district and there's a vacancy, I, you know, see the cases from day one. So if there are things that we can do to better partner with y'all, you know, before ZRT or things like that, so it's a smooth ride, please don't hesitate to let us know. I think we've given you plenty of feedback, and I know I'm always appreciative of feedback about how I work cases as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I, as I mentioned, definitely authorized hearing. I can come back with at another time and give you a little bit more information about the program. You know, how many we have, how many in the pipeline, and then what's the time frame on those. So that's something we can definitely. I'm looking at that as we speak now. I just didn't have that today, but that's something we're working on. I'm glad you commented about the format. We are changing the format of the annual report for all boards. So it's consistent. As I mentioned, I just presented to Board Adjustment last week. This week is for this one. We also have other board. We're going to do that. Instead of waiting till January, because the data, we are talking about fiscal year, is September 30th is the last day of the data. Instead of waiting for January, and I did talk to Chair Sadid whether we can come here a little bit early, because we are already 40 days into the new fiscal year. So I want to present this a little bit sooner with you, get some feedback from you. If I need to adjust some of the goals and the things, it's easier to be at the beginning. So moving forward in the future years, we're going to come back a little bit sooner, probably sometime in like early November or late October even, to give you this presentation. And then if you have any feedback, we can include in the written report, which is due to the city manager's office sometime in February. But I want to get this in front of you a little bit sooner, so to get some feedback and just get the data in front of you as we move, because otherwise, by the time in January or February, the data already outdated.
That's great. I remember some last-minute scrambles on previous years on those reports. So great job there.
I'm glad you like it.
Thank you so much. Also, I'd like to thank you for such a robust report. I think, you know, of all the ones that I've seen, this is clearly the best so far. It speaks to my language. I love to see charts and comparisons and baselines, and all very good questions and comments. And the one I'd just like to mention, you know, I'm frequently asked about the time frame, and I think when you look at this analysis, the theme throughout is about staffing and resources. And so, you know, some time back, I just got curious about the size of the department, the size of the budget. So I did a little analysis comparing the city of Dallas with the city of Los Angeles. You may have heard about this. You know, the city of Los Angeles has a budget of about $80 million. I think the budget for this department is probably less than 15.
It's $67 million.
67?
Yes.
Okay. The analysis online is much less than that.
I think you're looking at just one department at a time, but
Yes.
now we're combined, it's 67.
The combined department, okay.
Yes.
And I believe some of the analysis, the comparisons of the numbers is, the city of Dallas, roughly 380 square miles, city of Los Angeles, maybe 30% more in population, 1.3 million versus 3.5. City of Los Angeles, about 1.5 times larger. And when you define the number of planners, this department is about 100 or so. City of Los Angeles is about 450. Even the city of Dallas is growing at twice the rate the city of Los Angeles. So, we do talk a lot about, the speed of the thing, the way, the process maybe is taking a little too long. Part of the answer, I think, is not staffing and resources, is it not?
That's something I'm reallocating the resources right now. Sometimes we feel like it's more needed. Andrea, I told Andrea whatever you need, so I gave her, the funding to do. I'm also planning to reallocate some planner position to her team. So we are doing that. There are some positions I prioritize. Some of the prioritized work, and I do allocate resources to that. And next budget year, I'm going to look at it again, whether we need to add more. But this budget year, I think through realignment, reallocation, reclassification, projection, we should be okay. But sometimes you do have vacancy. That's something we're trying to get ahead as well. We do have more than 20% vacancies throughout the department, which we are actively working on with help from HR. So we are hoping in the next few months, we're going to fill a lot of those positions. As I mentioned, some of the position is we can do to, it's not the good fit of the position. We cannot attract people from all of the kind of a senior planner, but we can attract people from more like entry level. Sometimes we just have to grow our own planners and professionals. So we are just having different strategy right now, but I think this year we are good with positions. We can realign, reassign some of the positions.
Excellent. I guess just the last thing I'll say, as someone that looks at this process from the outside, occasionally I'm a guest in your workplace. It's always been fascinating to me that when I watch the process and it becomes kind of this war of budgeting and resources, and sometimes it boils down to fees. And how many fees do you generate? And that has been an interesting thing for me to think about, because no one knows the value of the product that flows through your department and through this body, when in fact I think it's billions of dollars a year, probably $10 to $15 billion of income side of the balance sheet for the city of Dallas, and nobody keeps track of that. And I would challenge almost any other department in the city of Dallas to, if anyone is creating more value for the city than your department and this body, I'd like to know.
I also would like to use this opportunity to thank our staff. They are, very few of them are here listening to this, but I would say I have very talented staff, and I really, really appreciate their work. The reason I can, be here in front of you to talk about successes because of the work they are doing every day. They're the frontline employee, and they may not get opportunity to present anything, but they are working very hard every day. So I would like to use this opportunity to thank everybody working in our department. Also, the board and commission that will work with you and our outside, help as well. There's some consultant helping us. There's volunteers that are working with us, and also our customers. We have ongoing communication with them, so they keep getting us the feedback and keep us on the right track. So I would like to use the opportunity to thank everybody, especially our staff at planning and development.
Thank you so much, Chair Shadid, for the comment about the actual revenue, or I don't even know, improvement, or I don't know, of the work of the City Plan Commission with the entire development department and especially the zoning team. Yes, I will find a way to track a little bit of data into that. I did ask our data analytics to, and I will say this is ad hoc, show me the biggest permits for a certain period of time. I think it was last year. I just was curious to find out if those bigger permit fees were enabled by this body, yes, sure enough, first 10 of them were zoning cases. So I want the City Plan Commission to know that, and you are right. Like most of the docket and most of the things that we're enabling here do come back first as a revenue to the city hall, but obviously as a tax increase to the city.
Thank you. I think it's two words, it's added value. And last thing I'll say, we went into the rabbit hole, we did some analysis when we were looking through the bond, and staff brought in, 4 or 5 cases where they showcased the added value of investing in a project through using bond dollars. And some of those were zoning cases that we had seen that flowed right through this body in your department. And the added revenue, tax revenue for the city of Dallas in most cases was 2, 3, 4, sometimes 10, 20x. And so, that kind of added value, I think, is not seen by most of the folks, in the public, and that's the added value, again, that happens through this process. But anyway, thank you both. I appreciate the presentation. Commissioners, it's 11:40. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll get back into the docket. Each case individually, we begin with case number 2. I think there was a correction, yeah. There's some brief, but it could be as brief. Let's do it, yeah.
Chair, are we ready for the briefing?
Yes, sir, we are. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment. All right, this is case Z234-255. It is an application for a planned development district for agricultural and retail uses on a property zone in R10A Single Family District, located on the west line of South St. Augustine Drive, south of Labette Street, approximately 4.37 acres in size. Located here, far southeastern part of the city, kind of Kleberg-Riley area. Here's an aerial map showing the site. As you can see, it's a narrow but very wide lot. And a zoning map showing the area. The majority of the area is zoned R10A, single family, with a large amount of single family houses. There is a CR district to the north with a general merchandise and food store, less than 3,500 square feet. I also saw a CO for a restaurant there and a vehicle engine repair shop. And then to the southeast, there's a small NSA district with a general merchandise food store, smaller than 3,500 square feet. The applicant does intend to establish quite a bit going on here. An animal clinic, a horse tack and feed store. They would like to board horses and also engage in agricultural production. And in order to accomplish this, they're requesting a planned development district. Here we have site photos showing the subject site on South St. Augustine looking west, then looking to the northwest, to the north and the northeast, then to the east and southeast and to the south, and then the north-northwest. Yes, thank you. Here's the proposed development plan for the site. It is pretty hard to see at this level, so we'll zoom in here. The way that the site is laid out is that there will be a long driveway coming in from South St. Augustine, going past the existing single-family structure that is there, and then opening up into the wider portion of the site. The applicant intends to have a feed store and the clinic there in the middle of the site, as well as a hay barn, and then further back will be the kind of the equine therapy and equine care area with a pasture, paddocks for the horses, therapy pond, I guess it's sort of kind of like a water aerobics for horses, as well as an equine ring. Then the turn lane over here on the western side of the site with some larger parking spaces for trailers to be able to pull up and bring horses in. Comparing the development standards, as we see here, it actually is going to follow the R10A standards, so that one doesn't need to be highlighted there. It'll follow the R10A standards, and the only change here is that the primary uses would not be residential, but instead a mix of sort of retail, personal service uses, as well as the agriculture production. Our analysis is that when we look at these PD requests, I think there was some good spirited discussion about PDs earlier. We have to look at the appropriateness of a PD and then the appropriateness of the uses in the PD. In terms of the appropriateness of a PD, the applicant's intended uses, they cannot all be combined into any single base zoning district. The stickler here is that with the animal shelter and clinic and the general merchandise and food store, you could do that with a commercial or community residential district. However, you would not be able to do some of the other horse uses, as it were. Private stable, commercial stable, those are not uses that you can do within a community residential district. And so we look at, okay, in that case, it seems that a PD is the only option to be able to combine all these uses onto one lot. So then from there, we have to look at the actual appropriateness of these uses within the area. And we do find that the envisioned development fits with the character of the area. The area is certainly, as I think we're aware, more of a country and small town part of the city compared to many other parts of the city. There are a large amount of large lots there with a lot of space, and that it would generally fit with the character of the area. Furthermore, retaining the R10A single-family development standards, that does limit the impact of it on neighboring properties. They wouldn't be able to build up to the property line. They have to have a fair amount of setback actually for all of these structures, as they are considered other permitted structures rather than a single-family structure. So if we go back to those development standards, you've got at least a 10-foot side yard and a 15-foot rear yard. And on the development plan, there's actually quite a bit more space between that and any of the structures that would be placed there. As such, staff's recommendation is approval, subject to a development plan and conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anything on the site right now?
The site currently has one single-family structure on the very far eastern portion of the site near St. Augustine. The rest is undeveloped.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, commissioners? We'll go to number 3. Mr. Clinton, good morning. Good morning.
Hello, this is KZ 234-280. It's an application for an amendment to an expansion of PD 456 on property zone PD 456 within R10A single family district. An area bounded by Forest Road and Skyline Drive to the north, Shepherd Road to the west, and Stoltz Road to the south. The purpose of the request is to amend the existing PD to allow adjustments to boundaries of their existing sub-areas and their permitted uses, as well as heights on the site. It's approximately 67 acres in total size. Again, current zoning is PD 456. It's developed as a gated community with existing housing development, surface parking. The property has frontage on Forest Lane, Landa Lane, Skyline Drive, Shepherd Road, and Stoltz Road. Geographically, it's in northeast Dallas, above the Arboretum, about 11 miles from downtown. And once again, it's just an amendment to current PD. There have been 8 zoning cases in the immediate area within the last 5 years. Here's our location map. This is the aerial map. Here's the zoning map showing the surrounding uses. To the north, there's IR, warehouse, storage, and retail, as well as single family. To the south, single family and PD 501, developed as the elementary school. To the east, R10A, single family with PD 286 and PD 327, as well with SUP number 2397, which is a daycare. And then to the west is also single family with PD 141 and PD 220. Here we have site visit photos. This is on site looking west. This is on site looking east. This is a fairly large site, so I'll try to run through these photos quickly. This is on site looking south. On site looking east. This is on site looking south. As you can see, the zoning signs are properly posted. This is on site looking to the north, residential adjacencies. This is at the intersection of Shepherd and Skyline, looking east. This is same location looking south. And we're just going to go all around the property here. The same location looking east to the adjacent uses. This is at Stoltz and Shepherd, looking south. This is looking north towards the property. This is looking west. This is looking south to the, believe that's the elementary school. Same location, looking north towards the property. Looking west. Looking south towards more residential adjacencies. This is looking north. South towards the church. This was inaccessible due to the residential homes right next to the site, so couldn't access it, could not get pictures. But then we come back to Forest, looking north, and then looking west. So here's the proposed development plan. And this is an enlargement showing the data table. Really quickly, so the request is, again, to just adjust the boundaries of the existing sub areas within the PD, as well as shifting the heights and adding 2 new uses. So essentially to my, essentially to my knowledge, the applicant is just looking to shift some of the taller heights from the outer perimeter of the site towards the center. And I believe the intent of that was to not impose any potential impacts to the existing residential adjacencies. They wanted their taller buildings to the middle, the shorter ones to the closer to the edges of the site, so that it fits better within the fabric, the existing fabric and the character of the neighborhood. And staff recommendation is approval, subject to an amended Exhibit 456A, amended Exhibit 456C, amended Exhibit 456D, amended Exhibit 456E, and amended conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes, Mr. Clinton, looking at this plan, the largest height increase is actually in Subdistrict F, which is up on the northern end, up on the Forest corridor. Is that not correct? It's going from the previously approved 30 feet to 78 feet?
I'll have to double check that.
I see the applicant nodding her head, so I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
But that would be, and that height isn't actually required, I would guess not at this point, if the plan is to put in 72 units of, what is this called? Apartment retirement housing and 12 units of attached single retirement housing. But given that there's still a possibility for, I don't know, 400 or 500 more dwelling units here, I'm assuming that the location up on Forest was considered to be the appropriate place to put more density?
That's correct.
Okay, and then the neighborhood to the east, I guess that's a single-family neighborhood, they would have the protection of the residential proximity slope.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Please, Commissioner Carpenter.
The 0.5 FAR limitation was removed on the development plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll keep going with case number 4.
Okay. This is Z23428, and it's an application for a specific use permit for a mini warehouse use on property zoned in MU2 Mixed Use District. It's located on the north line of Gannon Lane between South Cockrell Hill Road and South Westmoreland Road. It's about 3.5 acres. And there it is, located off Cockrell Hill, near the southern boundary of the city. Here is the aerial view of it. As you can see, the facility is built out today. So it does butt up against the highway on one side. There's a number of commercial uses to the east, directly sharing a kind of a frontage with this property is an office building, office showroom, warehouse to the west, and then there's some multifamily across the street. So there's a couple buildings on site that make up the existing mini warehouse facility, which a mini warehouse, just to clarify for those who don't know, is in plain terms a self-storage facility where individual rental spaces are below a certain size. And this property has had an SUP before. It was built out under a separate SUP, didn't renew its most recent one, expired back in April. And so they're not proposing any changes significantly to the SUP besides getting a new one. Here's a site, on-site looking north, looking northwest at their kind of leasing office, a little bit deeper into the site looking at the primary building, and from the neighbor, and from the other neighbor, and that's the back main building. Closer from the highway, looking around here on LBJ, looking north, also on LBJ. It's one of the warehouses next door. That's a true warehouse, not a mini warehouse. And looking down Gannon Lane, multifamily across streets, warehouse next door. So here's the site plan. It is the same site plan they've been approved for in the past that they did ultimately build out. Not making any changes to the site plan, not making any changes to the conditions. Conditions remain the same. They've requested 10 years with eligibility for automatic renewals. They've had automatic renewals in the past. They've missed one of them, and they're now expired, of course. The one thing I'll note is when copying over these conditions, the facade material condition cannot be included, should be struck when we create the ordinance, but otherwise everything will remain the same. And with that, its recommendation is a approval for a 10-year period with eligibility for automatic renewal for additional 5-year periods thereafter and subject to a site plan and conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Carpenter?
Conditions as briefed?
Yes, thank you.
Any other? Commissioner Forsyth?
Is there a residential component to this MU2 district?
No, any MU2 can build out a residential component if they so choose, but they're working in a base MU2, so those uses are regulated purely by the MU2. The SUP is the only use in play here that requires an SUP, but with that said, none of that is planned. It's essentially planned to stay exactly the same as the warehouse, mini warehouse.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Thank you very much. And our best to Ms. Garza. We'll go to number 5. Case number 5, Commissioner, is going to be held under advisement to November 21st. Do we have any questions on that? Okay, we would go to number 6. Thank you, sir. Re-advertise, that's right. Number 6 is going to be held as well, Commissioners, re-advertise. So we'll brief it sometime in the future. Takes us to number 7.
Morning, Commissioners, or Afternoon, I should say. Chair,
Morning.
can you see me on the screen by chance?
I cannot, not yet.
No. Okay, bear with me one moment.
There you go. Okay, now, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry about that. So let me share. Okay, and let me swap screens. Apologies. Can you see that screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commission. Afternoon. This case Z234-201. It's an application for a new specific use permit for vehicle display sales and service. It's about a 2,000 square foot unit out of a larger building. There are two buildings on site. Sort of give you some context there. Zoning background, it is in PD 534. That's the CF Han Special Purpose District, Subdistrict 2. So with the D1 dry overlay, and there is another active SUP for office, showroom, warehouse uses on site that does not overlap this unit in question. I can see its location there. See it's two linear buildings. They extend southward from CF Han. Interior parking between them. Surrounding uses, there's residentially zoned lands south and to the southwest. Properties to the east and west and north over CF Han are largely industrial within that PD 534. Taking a look at the site during our visit, looking northwest up CF Han and then back down southeast. On the site, give you a little bit of context on parking condition and what these buildings look like. Looking back up, taking a look at the requested site plan, you can see those two linear buildings, CF Han to the plan left. Just kind of zooming in a little bit, you can see the boundaries of that SUP site within that 2,000 square foot unit, and specifically the display would be those two parking stalls that you see there labeled display. With that, staff's recommendation is approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewals for additional 5-year periods subject to that site planning conditions.
Thank you, sir.
Happy to answer
Questions, Commissioners? Any questions on this item? Okay, let's go to number 8.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to be covering this case for Gianna. This is Z234-215. It's an application for a specific use permit for an alcoholic beverage establishment limited to a microbrewery, microdistillery, or winery on property zone Plan Development District number 842 on the southwest corner of Hope Street and La Vista Drive. The purpose of the request is to allow a microbrewery within an existing building on the property. Here we see the location map showing the property in city limits. An aerial map with the area of request outlined in blue. A zoning map with surrounding zoning districts and land uses. So you can see to the east here, pretty large tract of MF2A zoning. Most of the
Pardon me,
zoning.
just 1 second. Commissioner Wheeler has a conflict on this item and has logged off. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Much of the zoning to the west is in the Lower Greenville PD. To the east, primarily single-family uses. To the northwest and south are retail, restaurant, and personal service uses for the most part. Like I said, the area of request is zone PD 842. It's developed with a currently vacant commercial structure. Their proposed hours of operation would be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. midnight Friday and Saturday. Total area of the request is 5,300 square feet. Of this area, brewery use would comprise about 2,700 square feet. The tasting room would be around 1,700 square feet, and there will also be a second-story mezzanine that would be used for storage. It's about 800 square feet. And I did want to note, since this case is under advisement, since the last hearing, the applicant has provided updated SUP conditions, and those were included in the docket published last Friday. So moving to some site photos, this is kind of on the site, looking at the front of this building. Moving around to the eastern portion of the site, we can still see that vacant commercial structure here at that corner, starting to move around to the back of that building. And then we can kind of see some of the surrounding area around this request. This is to the west, getting closer to Greenville. A few more photos of that area. This is one of the restaurants that's in the area. And this is on Lewis looking across the street, on Lewis looking north, and on Lewis looking across the street. Here is the applicant's proposed site plan. You can see the SUP area outlined here in gray, as well as the parking spaces here along the front of the site. And with that, staff's recommendation is approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewal for additional 5-year periods, subject to a site plan and conditions. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners? Any questions on this item? Okay. Commissioners, before we go to the next case, well, let's do one more, and we'll take a lunch break.
This is item number 9, case Z234-224. It's an application for an amendment to Track 2 within Plan Development District number 234, and a specific use permit for a service station on the east side of South Cockrell Hill Road, south of Corral Drive. The proposal is for a new SUP to provide service station fuel pumps for the property, and it's approximately 1 acre in size. We did hear this case back August 8th hearing, so there have been changes to the SUP conditions since then, no other changes. Here's our location map. This is the aerial map and zoning map showing the existing surrounding zoning districts and uses. The site again is zone PD 234. Subdistrict Tract 2. To the north is also PD 234, but Subdistrict Tract 1 with commercial retail and R10 residential. To the south is MF1 residential, and to the east also MF1 residential. West of the property is the city of Duncanville, but the uses look to be commercial. Here are site visit photos. This is South Cockrell Hill Road. Looking north, and the zoning signs have been fixed as of today. This is on South Cockrell Hill Road, looking east. Same location, looking north. Same location, looking east. Commercial retail adjacency in this photo here. This is on site looking west. This is on site looking south. on-site looking south. And surrounding uses, again, this is to the west of the site. This is within the city of Duncanville's jurisdiction, but the uses seem to be retail, commercial retail. And this is same location looking north. On-site looking south. And lastly, looking east to the multifamily uses. This is the applicant's proposed site plan. And I just want to highlight some of the conditions that did change from the last hearing. So applicant's time limit the request was for a 10-year period, eligible for auto renewal. Staff's recommendation, should CPC go against staff's recommendation, is for a 5-year period, no auto renewal. Landscaping, not going to read all of this, but basically an enhanced residential buffer zone will be required, as well as a street buffer zone. Changes to the parking. So the original request is that parking be located and shown on the attached site plan. The change is that to add no overnight truck or motor vehicle parking is prohibited. We also added ingress egress must be provided in the location shown on the attached site plan. No other ingress or egress is permitted. And then lastly, the fuel pumps must be properly maintained and in a state of good repair and need appearance. If broken or unusable, they must be replaced or repaired. Staff's recommendation is denial.
Thank you. Questions, commissioners? Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Commissioner Herbert.
On the condition changes, the SUP change from 10 to 5, I know they have, if this is approved, they have to build. Was there a specific reason why you reduced it to 5?
Yes, staff felt that because it is a new SUP, and yes, they would have to build, 5 years was more than enough to get them, time to build, get their permits, things of that nature, as well as prove that they're a good operator in this specific area.
Okay, and another question was, I don't know if this has been discussed or if you know or not, but will there be diesel pumps on the site?
I'm not aware of that, and that might be better suited for the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clinton.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Commissioner Wheeler is on our way here, so we will brief that case and the rest of the cases when we hear them. It is 12:25. That concludes the briefing of the Dallas City Planning Commission. Commissioners, let's take a quick lunch and get back online.